first wave is done, but also like excited and nervous because I just realized like, oh, I got 1 month till UC deadlines and then only one more month after that till regular decision. And I have like 8 more schools for regular decision.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the podcast. As I mentioned at the end of our last episode last week, we are going to be transitioning to a live coaching model in 2025. And as a way for us to get ready for that and preview that format to you all, today's episode will be a live coaching episode. And this one is going to be a little different than our future live coaching episodes, in which it'll be a one-time session the first time I'm meeting a student and coaching them through a particular challenge. What I have done for this week is taken the topic that I wanted to talk to you all about and gotten one of my existing students to join me in the studio to talk about how we are going to use the materials he has been working on and created for some early applications, and how he's going to use those to pivot into the upcoming deadlines for the University of California. You'll hear in the episode he decides he wants to apply to the University of Washington, and then also for his regular decision applications. So the context is here, we know each other, and I have seen the other essays that he's written, and I know the content that he has and how he can deploy it. I'm also really familiar with what his goals are or where they are right now in terms of what he wants to study and what kind of work he may want to do after college. And in future episodes, we probably won't have that kind of in-depth knowledge or even the rapport to be able to move through, these sort of challenging issues. So I'll let you take a listen. I'm going to give this student a name and we will call him Roger. He is based in Southern California, not too far from me. And take a listen as we talk through what do we do next now that early applications are done. How are you feeling after we submitted all of these early applications? Like, truthfully, how does it feel?
Well, it's very relieving for sure. Like first wave is done, but also like excited and nervous because I just realized like, oh, I got 1 month till UC deadlines and then only one more month after that till regular decision. And I have like 8 more schools for regular decision, and it took me like almost a month to get 2, 3 schools done for EDEA. So it's a little nervy for sure.
Yeah. You also mentioned before we started recording that soccer season's about to start for you.
Yep. In 2 weeks we got
So
like,
what's that gonna do to your time?
oh, definitely it's gonna make my time so much, like I'm gonna have so much less time to do homework and ASB stuff and college apps for sure. Like 2 games a week, and it's probably gonna be mostly away, so the bus rides are pretty long.
So the thing that I want you to think about with that is not only is your quote unquote free time, I know you don't have a lot of free time, but your quote unquote free time is going to be eaten up by soccer practice and games and commuting back and forth and all of this stuff, which is just going to make it harder for you to find the time to do this work, which is on top of your normal schoolwork and other extracurriculars. But you are also going to be physically exhausted,
Yeah.
right? Your level of physical activity is about to amp up. A certain amount of physical activity is actually really great for creativity,
Okay.
but too much, we might go in the other direction. You're just going to be so bedraggled.
Like during summer.
Yeah, like summer, you were teaching sailing for like 9 hours a day in the hot sun and
Yep.
you just didn't have the brain power, right? So that's something I want you to think about. I think we have to be really, really careful with our time management because we also have holidays in the course of this,
Yeah.
and they're like days off of school and like probably other things going on too, family stuff. So when your time is crunched like this, it's even more important that you plan ahead,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
I know you're like, "Oh god, what have I gotten myself what have I got myself into?" Don't worry, like, we're gonna get through it. And the good news is, now that you have submitted 2 applications in the early round, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't have to do again, right? Your Common App essay is done. Yeah, we might look at it and make some revisions, but you don't have to start that from scratch, which we were doing, right? Your activity list is done. And again, we might make some revisions, but you're not starting from scratch. All of the little details that you have to fill out on the application form are done for the Common App. But maybe the bad news is the UC system uses a totally separate application. You will have to fill out that information in another format over there.
Oh
And
boy.
the activity list there is different. So
Oh.
that's one thing that you should definitely get a start on. And I have a template that I put into your admission spreadsheet for that.
Mhm.
It's called UC Activities. And like, hey listeners, I'm going to drop that link in the show notes too, so you can get to this template so you can organize your UC activities. So you will have to do that.
Mhm.
But the other piece of good news is that for your early schools, you wrote like 4 pretty distinct supplemental essays and then a bunch of those like little short answers.
Mhm.
Between those and your personal statement, I am pretty sure we have almost all the material you're going to need for the UCs and your other applications.
All right.
Of course, we'll have to tweak it, but like you are you and you showed up in those essays. That's not going to change, right? When they ask you about your academic interests, well, we have some core content that we can lean on and add to or change around to fit someone else's academic interest question. When they ask you about your favorite extracurricular activity, you have an essay about that. When you need to talk about a challenge that you overcame, you have something about that, right? So we're not starting from scratch. So you're in a really good position. And I know that you're feeling so bedraggled. And we just had the election yesterday. I'm sure that's also on your mind. But, I think keeping up the momentum, you will be surprised at how easy it is going to be to finish this. I don't want to pretend it's going to be like, walk in the park. It's going to be work. And I know you're going to
Yeah.
be tired and busy, but we're starting from a very different place,
Yeah.
right?
Let's do it.
Right. Okay. So the first thing I want us to reflect on, besides how you're feeling and how we're going to manage this, is what do you think went really well with your early action applications?
Well, I guess starting in like especially summer, I actually started aiming for UCs first. Like I was brainstorming answers to the UC questions. And that like me starting so early, I think was really or early was so good because it got my brain to start thinking about questions and start reflecting on like my own traits and like things about myself. And it got my mindset and like it got my mindset into like reflecting about myself and what was unique about myself. And even though I wrote like 6 drafts for UCs and I'm probably not gonna use any of them, that led to me being able to think of other ideas when I was switching over to EDs and EAs where I was like, "Oh, this is me. This is like something I really wanna share about myself." And I think that was something that I think I
You're proud of?
yeah, yeah, that I was proud of that. I think just, like, whenever you come up with the ideas and you're like, "Oh, that's, like, such a core part of me," you're like, "Wow, like, I didn't even realize that myself." But then if I could change something, I think definitely staying off social media would have been actually a big one. Like, as in not taking social media advice and things with a grain of salt because everyone has their like advantages and stuff and people have heard so many stories and the stories are so radically different that like I think that it's bad if you already have a mindset that you can't really get into certain schools because of your GPA or like test scores.
So I think you're sharing two really important insights. One is you did start writing over the summer and you had a bunch of ideas that didn't go very far. But the fact that you were trying out a lot of ideas, I think kind of cleared out the cobwebs and helped you think about, like, wait, no, what do I really want to say? Not, I'm trying to write something that sounds like a college essay, whatever that is. Right?
Yeah.
So you gave it a couple of goes and like we might use some of that content. We'll see. But even
Hmm.
if we don't, it was really, really beneficial for you to do that. Because I even remember when your mom, first reached out to me, she was like, he's blocked up. He
Yeah.
doesn't share his emotions. And you were pretty vulnerable in your essays, and I think that block, I don't know permanently, but that block has been removed, at least when it comes to these essays, and you seem much more comfortable writing about yourself, which I really love to see. And then the second thing you said about like tuning out the social media advice and everybody else's stories, I think is so key. And I really hope that you have success in doing that because it's really hard. I mean, you're going to be on social media, you're talking about college stuff, the algorithm hears that and they're just going to feed you this video and that video. But if you can stay focused on what matters to you, who you are, what your story is, and the data, the facts, it'll be a little easier to not get swept up in that. But I
Yeah.
think that's really great advice. Okay, anything else that like didn't go well that you want to avoid from this last round?
I guess like the time, because I started writing EDs with like I'd say like a month, like the supplementals with like a month or a month and a half to go.
Yeah,
And I guess it would have been nice having extra time, but it also the limited time also like pushed me like, oh, you gotta go. It's time to
yeah,
pick it up.
yeah. You are also, I think, the kind of person who likes an intense challenge.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like, you're
Hmm.
super competitive, you're intense in that way.
Yeah.
So I feel like that time pressure might have helped you a little bit. But, we're not starting from scratch now. So it's not, from point 0 to done in a month. It's maybe 50% of the way to done in a month. So
It was kinda odd too because usually I'm not a procrastinator, especially with my homework, but college apps were just so hard for me to get started.
yeah,
And then especially, like, during the summer, that was, like, me with all the cobweb like, trying to clear the cobweb was like that I had a really long block, like, writer's block.
yeah.
Like, I couldn't think I would sit in my chair and just try to think of ideas, and nothing would come up. And then that's when I started, like, free writing and then journaling like you told me, and then, like, slowly it got
It
better.
came out. Yeah, great. Okay, let's get into some of the work then. I told you if we're looking at UCs, we've got a deadline November 30th, and then we're going to be looking at a couple of regular decision schools, January 1st, January 5th. Deadline is the timeline on that. And knowing that you've got a busy next couple of months and we've got the holidays, that I really want you to be able to take a break from school and from
Mhm.
college apps on. I would love to see your UC's done before Thanksgiving and like 75% of your regular decision stuff done before Thanksgiving.
Ooh, alright. Let's do it.
I'm going to show you how it's possible
Mhm,
today, hopefully in the next like half an hour here.
mhm.
So let's first confirm like where you're going to apply,
Okay,
because
yeah,
I know that this happens to a lot of people. Like, when you start off and you build this like really idealistic college list,
yeah.
then you do the work for one or two of them, and it makes you have second thoughts about like,
Yeah,
do I really want to apply to this many schools, or do I
yeah.
want to apply to school that has 8 supplemental essays? Like, I barely survived 3. So let's talk about that. So for the UCs, are you targeting specific campuses?
Yes, so definitely UCLA, Berkeley, and then UCSD and UCSB.
Okay,
Yeah,
and UCSB.
yeah,
Yep. Okay. And one thing that we need to be double checking and making sure you've got a plan for is with the University of California applications, you do have to say what major
yeah.
you are intending to apply to.
Mhm.
And every one of those campuses will ask you for an alternative major. Some of them will even ask for a second alternative major.
Wow, okay.
So, have you done that work to figure out what's the exact major at each of these schools?
Yes. Actually did this during summer, so we'll see,
Fantastic.
yeah, we'll see how relevant it is now. I'll put it on the spreadsheet.
Great. And then I don't think this applies to, you would be looking at statistics or applied math, right?
Yes.
Some of the UC majors are what they call selective. Some of the campuses call them capped or
Mhm.
high demand majors.
Yeah.
And these are typically things like computer science, engineering. Statistics might fall into that category at some of those campuses. So we're going to want to
Ooh,
double check that. It
alright.
doesn't mean you're going to have to take any additional steps. It's just, for you to manage your expectations that these are high demand majors. They can't accept everybody who wants to do that major. So they will be looking for particular signs of interest, advanced study in that area, extracurriculars, internship, like whatever it is that's related to that area that really demonstrates this is what you want to do, and
Got
that
it.
you have some, training and preparation for
Yeah.
that major. You have a better chance of being selected for those selective majors.
Hmm.
So, okay, we'll want to double check that. That might impact how you approach the questions,
Oh, okay. What way?
because if it is a capped major, then you'll probably want to use, the UC has these 8 personal insight questions. One of them is to talk about an educational opportunity that you've taken
Mm,
advantage of,
okay.
right? And we'd want to answer that question with information about this particular topic, and like where the interest came from and what you've done outside of school related to that interest and how you want to apply it as a way to sort of bolster your application for that selective major.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, so double check that. And then as I'm looking at the list of colleges that you kind of prepared earlier in the summer, I'm
Hmm.
wondering how many of them still feel relevant to you. So you applied to Brown, you applied to USC.
Hmm.
We're going to do the UCs. I see Michigan, Northeastern, UW in Washington. I see Stanford, Northwestern, Duke, Dartmouth, NYU. How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, like a lot of the schools I researched, I really liked. Visited Stanford, which was great, even though I know like Stanford is a far reach, but I'm
Hmm.
willing to do the work for that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I also agree. Like, I definitely think I needed more safeties or like more like in my range, definitely. So,
Yeah. What you actually need are more targets,
okay.
right? Like I want one or two safeties. Some people call them likely schools. You've got your reach schools. The reach schools are always the easiest to figure out, right? Like they're like, oh my gosh, it would be so amazing to go here. It's like the best college in the world, right? But it's the in between schools
Okay.
where you actually have a very good chance that most people overlook.
Hmm.
So, given your grades, your SAT scores, like you're a pretty competitive student,
Hmm.
right? And that makes it even harder to find the target school because you're like, oh, wait, I'm not going to settle,
Yeah, yeah.
right? If I'm going to go, especially as a California resident, if I'm going to go out of state, it's got to be really great,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had that conversation with your family
Yeah.
about like when does out of state tuition become worth it?
Yeah, like I talked to my mom and she was definitely saying how it's not worth it to go out of state if like I get into like a really good UC school because the UC schools are already so great and it's not worth it paying out of state tuition for a school that's worse than or like academically worse than or
Or even equivalent to,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
which has made
Yeah.
like searching for safety schools or like sorry, targets so much harder.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, in some cases, and this applies, I work with a lot of international students who are like, I can go to the best college in my home country. Like
Mhm.
I'm already in because of
Oh,
whatever my grades are. But if I can go to a quote unquote better college in the United States, I'll go there. So then they're only applying to, Harvard, Yale, Columbia. And if they don't
mm,
get in, they've got a great option at home. Right. So you
yeah,
might think about it the same way. Like,
yeah,
when would you go to a college out of state over UC San Diego or UC Santa Barbara or UCLA even,
yeah.
right? And that's where your research is going to be really helpful, right?
Mhm.
Because we're using words like better and worse, but like those are meaningless terms,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We got to get really specific to what you want out of your college experience, what your education is actually going to be, what the outcomes could be, like what relationships do these colleges have with employers that you're really interested in or industries that you're, intending to work in,
yeah,
and how can that help you set yourself up for success. I
mhm,
think that should be your measure of what's worth it.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, but we know for sure we're going to do Stanford, you said.
Yes. And then also, like, recently added UW, like, because I thought, like, "Oh, that's, like, a good, like" it's, like, kinda close, but not really.
So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but
Yeah,
UW's overall admission rate is like close to 60%.
uh-huh,
Their computer science admissions rate, can you guess what it is?
like 5 or something.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So it's like you might as well be applying to Stanford.
Yeah.
The other thing is University of Washington's deadline is November 15th.
Yeah. Yo, I was looking at it too though. Like my brown like matches up pretty perfectly with
Okay.
yeah,
You feel like you can do it.
yes.
Now, since you mentioned that your Brown essays overlap really nicely with University of Washington, this is probably a good point to like pivot to
Mhm.
how do we make something that you've already written fit a new school,
Uh-huh.
right? So there are a kind of couple of steps to this that I see. First is like just take stock of what you've already written, right?
Okay.
And if we think about Brown, we had a question about academic interest.
Mhm.
We had a question about something that brings you joy, and we had a question about how your upbringing has shaped you as a person.
Mhm. Yep.
And then there are a couple other short things like why Brown and, what's your most meaningful extracurricular, but those were pretty short, right?
Mhm.
And when we look at the University of Washington supplemental essays, we have tell a story from your life, describing an experience that either demonstrates your character or helps shape it. Now, this is a longer one, and usually people use their Common App essay for this.
Mhm.
Then they also say our families and communities define us and our individual worlds. Community might refer to your cultural group, extended family, religious group, neighborhood or school, sports team or club, coworkers, etc. Describe the world you come from and how you, as a product of it, might add to the diversity of University of Washington. So it is very similar to that question that Brown asks, which is like, College Hill reminds people of home. Like, tell us about your home and what you're gonna bring.
Yeah.
But this one has, like, the specific lens of diversity on it.
Mhm. Okay. Yes.
So, really just one essay. So, we've taken stock what you've got. You've got that, let's call it the home essay from Brown that
Mhm.
you wanna adapt to this one here. What of that essay, if we pull it up, let's see. What of that essay do you feel like could apply directly?
I think the the direct it's like we talked about how I kinda redefine masculinity or just
Mhm.
how I yeah. So then I think that's kinda like the diversity part, like it's a new point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the question says, describe the world you come from. And the Brown question said, share an aspect of your growing up,
Mhm.
right? Which for you, you talked about feeling not like the stereotypical male leader,
Yeah.
right? And like how you've come to embrace just who you are, use your natural strengths and talents and like, you know, challenge the status quo kind
Yeah.
of assumptions about.
Who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so how can we adapt that idea of like, oh, I'm not this stereotypical dude
Mhm.
to the way University of Washington asked this question, which is describe the world you come from.
I think my struggles with, my insecurity with height definitely is, my world, the world that I came from, and then,
Mhm.
as a product
Like
of it
you were going to say you came from like a world of tall people or something?
no oh,
What are you
physically?
how are you going to do that?
Or, I'll describe how oh, do you mean, a physical world or, the community or
Well, any way you want to describe
anywhere?
it, but I actually think it might be more helpful to talk about where your idea or that original idea that you ended up challenging
Uh-huh.
seems to come from,
Oh, their origin of,
right?
the stereotypes and
Yeah. Like, where
traditional
did you pick that up? Is it like,
mm,
men you saw on TV that you looked up to, or maybe your dad looked up to, or,
mhm.
other guy friends kind of looked up to? Where did that come from? Right. And
Ooh,
then because of because that was like not so clearly not you,
yeah.
the world of I think your mom and your sisters had a lot to do with this,
Yeah, my parents, yeah.
right? Like that world is really what shaped you,
Yeah.
right? In contrast to this other image that was coming at you from other places.
Mhm,
And then I think you can keep the material you have about, using your size advantage on the soccer field
mhm,
and holding space for people's opinions and feelings
yeah,
in your leadership,
mhm,
that next paragraph that you have. And then I think we have to address that they're asking about diversity and you are defining diversity in a very specific way, right? Maybe
Okay.
not the first way people would define diversity.
Oh, really?
Well, maybe I should clarify. I mean, it sounds like we might be on different pages about this, but I think usually when people see the word diversity, they think racial diversity,
Mm, okay, yeah.
right?
I guess. I
And
didn't.
so you're talking about something slightly different. I agree,
Mhm.
it is an aspect of diversity. I think
Yeah.
it absolutely brings some, variation in the way people could think about themselves. And I think it's really what you have to say here is a really important like umbrella kind of concept for why diversity is a good thing,
Uh,
right? Like we should all be able to be ourselves.
yeah.
But I think you need to kind of explicitly state that
Okay.
the kind of diversity that you're really focused on is like the diversity of, nuance and allowing people to be how they want to be and like redefining masculinity or redefining what it is to be a leader.
Mhm.
The other thing we can think about here is like, while it would be really easy to just kind of copy paste this essay and then maybe change, two, three sentences throughout,
Mhm.
UW does not get to hear all of these other wonderful stories that you have told some of the other colleges already
Yeah.
about your experiences sailing,
Mhm.
about your academic interests, about, the kind of work that you do in your school culture,
Yeah.
right? So there may be aspects of those essays that you want to pull in to this one too to sort of make your best
Oh,
case to
I see
University
what
of
you're
Washington.
saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
see.
what does that make you think about?
Okay. So, like, I don't have to say how, or I can, like, other than me saying how I try to understand others and, like, share feelings with teammates and other people, I can say how it helps me teach kids how to sail or, like, how to help them get over their fears. And,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Exactly,
Got it.
exactly. Yeah, I think that could be a really great way to approach this.
Hmm.
And, you have a little more space. This essay is 300 words
Yes.
versus the 250 that you had for Brown. So I think that's a good plan. So, you don't have to well, I guess UW's application is due November 15th. You do have to write this right now.
Yes.
But when we're doing this for other schools, what we'll want to think about is what do we have?
Yeah.
What can we use?
Hmm.
And then just detail out what needs to change.
Got it. Okay.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to address my definition of diversity. I need to add in this other bit of content about sailing. I need
Hmm.
to, look up a specific mentorship program on the University of Washington campus that I would be really interested in doing.
Hmm.
Whatever the tasks are, and just list them out. And that way it will be easier for you to just tackle each task one at a time
Got it.
instead of thinking about, I have this amorphous essay that I have to
Yeah.
put together. And it also means that there's some of those things that will take you a little bit more time and some things that will be very easy.
Hmm.
Depending on your mood on a particular day, you could do the hard thing or you could do the easy thing,
Yeah.
right? You
Hmm.
don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it in order.
Hmm.
So that's what I recommend for that.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds really good.
Good. Okay, wonderful. Let's also talk about, so let's do this with like another school.
Okay. UCs?
Yeah, let's look at the UCs. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I know you did a little pre work on this and you started thinking about four of the questions that you thought you could answer. You wrote a bunch of stuff,
Mhm.
describe them to me, kind of crystallize the content of each of those essays that you've written so far.
All right, so we started with the second prompt of the PIQs, which is like everyone has a creative side and express describe how you express your creative side. And I started writing about how I video edit for a doctor, which allows those patients. I mean, those videos have actually been really impactful in allowing patients to take charge of their own health, and also helps a lot of people
Hmm.
who don't have access to like specialties like, let's say, a dermatologist. And then my second one, shoot, I don't remember what topic I was writing this one for. Oh, wait, it says three, greatest talent. But so I
Okay.
was trying to write about how my greatest talent was how I have a really open mindset and I'm really spontaneous and I like want to try a bunch of stuff. And I tried to describe that how like through that or like me coming into high school and how at first I was really not very spirited about high school. I didn't really want to try a lot of new things, but then once I started, it started domino affecting. So then,
Hmm.
yeah, but then I couldn't really make a really clear connection, and I was still kind of exploring that one myself too. So kind
Mhm.
of scrap that one. We got one where I tried to I told a story about how it was a moment with my it was a moment with my dad where, like, in violin practice where I was really stubborn to his advice, and how, like, over time I realized that was actually he was trying to teach me how to, like, have a growth mindset and, like, learn from my mistakes. And then I said how that, like, connected to sailing and how now I, like, try to do that with them for sailing. And then another one I have is, let's see, is a sailing one, which I try to talk about my sailing community and how at first when I started sailing, I was really scared. I was not doing so great, but then like it was really encouraging community, and I felt like I like was able to learn and be myself without needing to like succeed all the time. And then I talk about how that I applied that to like how I teach other kids now. And then the last one, this one was just me writing like stuff about why I like math and why how I think it's like it's a whole nother language and how it's like been like intertwined in all of my life and how I think and like sports and everything.
Mhm. Okay, so we have a bunch of options, and I'll point out to you that none of these really overlap with the essays that you wrote for the Common App schools, right? Your main essay is about having a positive mindset and like being kind to yourself. You have, as we already discussed, an academic interest essay, a joy essay, a aspect of you growing up essay, right? And so none of those are being reused here.
Oh yeah,
The other thing I'll comment on is you mentioned 2 essay drafts here that both touch on sailing,
yeah.
right? Like a different aspect of sailing in both of them, but I worry a little bit that you're, kind of wasting an opportunity to show them something different about you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely wouldn't. Yeah.
So if we start with what you already have, simply because those are great essays and they're fully edited, right? My priority or my preference would be let's see where we could reuse those first. And then if we still need some more content, maybe we come back to one of these things that you started with,
Hmm.
right? So looking at the personal insight questions. So let's first scan for academic interest,
Okay.
which could be a greatest talent or skill,
Hmm.
maybe. Number 4 is describe how you've taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity.
Hmm.
Which would you say you've done anything specific with math above and beyond the curriculum? I mean, you are taking very advanced classes.
Yeah, I guess the community college course I'm taking right now,
Mhm.
and then the survey study was also pretty related to kind of
Yeah,
related
the
to math.
research that you did.
Yes.
That I think that would be a really good one to highlight here, especially if statistics is a selective major at one of the UCs,
Ah, okay.
right?
Got it. Yeah.
But you haven't written anything about that research study or those classes.
Yeah, I think it's in a blurb in the like it's a little bit of a free write in the like academic interest one,
Uh-huh.
but
Uh-huh.
it's definitely not like a fully formed idea.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's one to think about then.
Hmm.
I'm looking at number 6 as well, which is an academic subject that inspires you. And I wonder then, I know for Brown, you wrote an essay about wanting to learn more about like applications of applied math, particularly in like social sciences.
Yeah.
And then you could probably use like maybe half of that Brown essay along with more information about the research that you did
Okay.
for number
So
6.
like intertwine like how I want to like apply math and also like how I like have found that you can apply math.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the Brown open curriculum plus new writing on research. Okay. I'm making this list for you. The second Brown essay, which is about something that you do for joy,
Yes.
you ended up writing about teaching sailing and helping kids get over their fears,
Hmm.
right? I really love that story. That could be an example of your leadership.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. It could also be, one of your greatest talents.
Yeah.
right? Because you do talk about
Yes.
yourself as a big brother to a lot of people,
Mhm.
right? On the like different teams in your own family, and then of course as a sailing instructor. So you could spin it that way.
Okay.
So I'm going to say one or three sailing essay from Brown. And then the aspect of you growing up. Do you see a way to use that one here?
I was thinking challenge because if I, like, describe, like, my, like, height as being a challenge, but then again, it's not
Mhm.
really the most significant challenge.
Yeah.
I It's a little
Yeah.
bit dramatic, like,
To
I
say
don't know.
that's your most significant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It could be my, like, greatest skill or talent is a little bit of, like, I'd have to, like, rework it a little bit,
Yeah. Well, maybe it doesn't have a great fit.
or it could be just, like, make a community or make your community a better place. That's, like, kinda the end of, like, what I kinda described.
Yeah. That could be it. My mind is skipping ahead a little bit though to using your personal statement in which you wrote about kind of keeping a positive attitude
Yeah.
and how that really defines your style of leadership.
Mhm.
That feels like a clear fit for number 1.
Mhm.
Describe an example of your leadership, right?
Oh, okay.
So I'll say 1 is your Common App essay, and
Okay.
then it would be number 3, your greatest talent or skill would be like mentoring, right?
Got it. Yeah.
And then we need one more. We need one more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we use the what are your thoughts if we use the brown, the, like, me being the what is it? Oh, what am I saying? The
Mhm.
where you come from brown one for just, like, question number 8 for the UCs?
What makes you a strong candidate?
Yeah.
You know, it could be number 7 too,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, the end.
because you do kind of talk about school spirit
Mhm.
in that one, not being embarrassed to like scream your head off at games and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do that. 7 is, let's just call it the short essay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That feels like a really good plan for the
Okay.
UCs.
Yes.
And, there may be phrases that we pull from like these original writings that you did, but again, like see them as just like your warm up exercises that got you to this place where you got these other really great essays out. Good. Okay. Well, I know that this is a lot. I think my recommendation to you is to like just get the easy stuff done as soon as possible.
Alright.
Copy paste the
Yes.
essays, create the Google Docs, start the application form.
Yes.
And for UCs, of course, it's a little bit nuanced. Like you've got to categorize your classes in the A through G categorization. Anything that doesn't fall into there goes onto your activity list. Your awards that have a separate section on the Common App go into your activity list. And then your actual extracurriculars also go into your activity list. And then the descriptions there are longer. It's 350 characters.
Oof. Should I use all of it?
So you should use most of it. If
Mhm.
there are things that you feel like you really, on the Common App, there's never enough room to share everything.
Yeah, yeah.
350 may feel like too much. You
Mhm.
don't have to use every single character, but
Okay.
you should probably say more than we're already saying,
Okay, got it.
right?
Like okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I encourage that to be your first step. The easy copy paste stuff,
Mhm.
right? Even just copy paste your activity lists
Yeah,
from the Common App into the UC template.
got it.
And then, discharge some of that like overwhelm and be like,
Yeah,
okay, well, main things are done. The next thing you do is go through and make your list of like, what do I need to do with this? What do I need to do with that?
got it. Yeah.
And then take it kind of step by step. Priority should be UW first and then UCs. And then, we'll talk again soon about where else you might want to apply regular decision.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Okay, great. All right, good work.
Alright.
All right, talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Talk to you
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Well, we had to leave it there, but I know that I'm going to look over some essays, pretty soon from him and help him submit a number of additional applications and finalize his regular decision list. But I do hope that this example is helpful for any of you listening, especially for those of you who may have students who did some early applications and are thinking, I'll worry about my regular decisions in December when I hear back from my earlies. Well, number one, not every early application will give you a notification by early December. A lot of early action applications don't have notification dates until the end of January or even sometime in February nowadays. So you may not know. Secondly, if you do hear back, you could be hearing great news, which is awesome. You're done. You don't even have to lift a finger on any other application. You could be deferred, in which case you do want to apply to other schools and you're kind of stuck in this little bit of a limbo. It can be very hard to motivate yourself because it feels like a rejection, but at the same time, oh, they didn't really reject me, but they didn't let me in. So, and you're going to have to submit probably some additional materials to that school. So you've got more work than just applying to your regulars. And then finally, you could get denied. And that is not going to feel good no matter how you prepare for it. It is not the end of the world, but it does sting. And it will be hard for you to be creative, to think about other schools, to kind of pick yourself back up and go into some intense writing and application creation to finish regular decision schools. So I really, really urge you to start thinking about this before you hear back from any early applications, to make a plan for how to get those things done, to really vet your school list and make sure you are applying to the right programs, that it's worth your time to apply to, and do your best with the written materials that you'll need to put together. And hopefully you'll be able to reuse, just like we did in this episode, reuse some of the material you've already created. It's not easy. We put these kids through a lot, folks, but capitalize on the momentum and stretch it out so that it doesn't have to be super intense, especially at a time when they're feeling really down if they get bad news. Okay. As I mentioned, I will link my UC activity template in the show notes. And if you are a student or know a student who would like to be coached through something, even something more specific than what we did here, we can go through a specific essay or, smaller questions than, all of the stuff that Roger needed to go through with me. Please fill out the form. I'm really excited to talk to more students. And of course, my team of admissions officers will also be getting involved. So it might not be me, it might be somebody else who's even more well versed in the particular challenge that the student is facing. If you're a parent who is worried about this process or some aspect of high school and higher education, there's a form for you too. So please spread the word. I want to help as many people as possible and make the time that you spend here as impactful as possible. And hopefully you can see yourself or your student in the situations that we're talking through here. All right. Well, happy mid November, folks, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.